Hello, I'm Maria Bulson. I'm being interviewed because I was the principal of Lee H. Kellogg School for 6.5 years. I've been retired now for about 10, and retirement is wonderful. But right after you retire, you're still not quite ready to give up what you've been doing for all your life. So I worked as a substitute teacher, mostly in the Canaan School District up in North Canaan. And I then, in 2015, I retired January 1st, 2013, after I turned 65. And I worked as a vice principal down in Sherman, Connecticut. I loved that time. I was in charge of discipline, and that was my major role, that and being on the building committee. I worked with several children who had difficulties and went through all kinds of process to give them support. After that, I worked with Rosemary Kilty up in North Canaan, and as I worked for long-term positions, fourth grade teacher, second grade teacher, and then finally, my last year in education was working as a Title I teacher for the Title I teacher who was staying home with her husband as a result of illness. That was wonderful. I loved all those years. They helped me come down from all my years of education. But then I wanted to do some things on my own, and I think many retired people like to do that. I got very involved with gardening, and so I picked up, my son made a picture book for me of my garden. Can I show this?
Sure.
And this is my garden. Right now, when Eric leaves, he's going to see all the dead garden, but this is what it looked like, and this is what it looks like in July. I fell in love with gardening and worked on building several gardens around my yard. I had to find something to do in the winter. My husband fishes, and he fishes all year long. That's where he is right now. And I started quilting. So quilting became my winter project and gardening my summer project. And I've now made 16 quilts and all kinds of placemats and table runners for other people. Of those 16 quilts, the majority of them are for other people, but I'm starting to do ones around the house that I keep seasonally over my couches. So this is a scrap quilt that I put together just to use up the scrap from my niece's quilt I made her. So I had fun making this, but I like the design.
It's beautiful.
But it's just fun. My friends didn't particularly care for the color. I'm a bright color person, so I won't be doing yellow fabric because yellow's my favorite color and blue's his. And I use that same friendship star, which you can see in the center. And I have it all over. It doesn't stand out because the star actually is the light blue, and the dark blue does set it off. So I'm learning color. I'm learning that maybe I should have had the color the other way around, but you don't notice it till it's all done. That design in the middle is called the friendship star. I not only got involved with gardening, I am involved with many organizations. I like being part, I guess I always have liked being part in supporting in areas of need. So I am now on the Board of Education, which I've been on now for about 4 years, working with a great board, with Patricia as our leader. She's a great leader. And I'm just looking down here because I take notes. But other things I'm involved with is the Hawthorne Club. I started that right after I retired with Mary Atwood, and she got me involved. And the Hawthorne Club is an organization of women who meet either bi-monthly or monthly to give reports on things that they love and enjoy. So over the time I've been involved, they've given reports about the space because the night sky has been a very big hobby of mine. And last year I did a Why is the Sky Blue? Very interesting report. And right now I'm doing my report, I'll do it next month, on exploration around the solar system. So you can kind of tell what some of my hobbies are. I am involved in the Ladies Auxiliary, and I wish that we could do even more. It's a great organization to support our town. I'm on the book club with Erica down at the library and been involved with that for a few years, read some really great books, and just things in the town that I've been interested in. But the biggest organization that I've worked with is the church. The church has become a major part of both my husband and my life. Right, I'm now chair of the outreach committee, and right before that I was chair of the trustees, and right before that I was chair of the deacons. We really don't have that many people who really like to lead and to be part of organizations, so I just seem to go from one to another and give my help wherever it's needed as far as that's concerned. That's basically my retirement. We've had hobbies over our lifetime. My husband and I, Lawrence Bulson, we have sailed and sailed Lake Champlain for 25 years. We've golfed. Oh my goodness, I can remember learning to golf when we lived in the town of Merrimack, New Hampshire. And I probably could hit a ball 30 yards, and now it's a little bit better than that. And golfing has been our life for many, many years, and sailing, and so has, we are readers, we play bridge. For many years, my husband owned 10% of 10 horses, and we were very involved with being part of horse races and going to Saratoga, and our final horse event was the Breeders' Cup when one of our horses ran, and shortly after that we sold our best horse, and we are no longer part of that organization. It's sad. I miss going behind the scenes up in Saratoga, but so that's been retirement, and retirement has been absolutely great. The best part was friends. I've made several friends in the community, and we swim together and exercise up at the Y. We walk together. We keep in touch with one another, make sure that everybody is okay. I think that's a major part of retirement. Okay, now that I've done with my last 10 years, let's go back and start at the beginning. And why did I become a teacher? I became a teacher because I think when I was very young, probably 5 years old, I loved teaching my neighbors. I taught Lori Jones her alphabet and how to say her numbers and how to start adding. I can remember sitting down at her house and just using slate boards and working on things. 5 years old. I've tutored several times in middle school and high school. I was I was vice president of Future Teachers of America. My high school year I was involved with everything. Student council, choir, student officials, I could go on. I was probably taking the late bus home probably 3 out of 5 days a week when I was involved in different organizations after school. Many, many years, I think all the years I was in high school and middle school, I was involved in musicals. You wouldn't know, I don't sing very well, but I could dance, and so I was involved in musicals in high school. I headed out to New Paltz, that's where I did my undergraduate degree with a major in elementary education. 4 years of education there was wonderful. It gave me a great background. I had a wonderful professor who offered me a fellowship, but I was married at that point, and it was fellowship or go with my husband on his job. So the fellowship didn't happen, but we did move from New York State to Vermont. My son went to a private kindergarten called Milford Cooperating Kindergarten, and that year I subbed in that kindergarten, and then I became the teacher the following year. That kindergarten went out of business because of money problems, so I found another kindergarten job at St. James Preschool. As you can tell, kindergarten became a love of mine. I did find a public school teaching job in Hollis, New Hampshire, and I worked as a transition teacher for 4 years. Transition was the school's answer to young children coming into school who weren't ready to start first grade. I learned so much during those years. Because I did not have a set curriculum in those years, I developed my own. I watched how children learned. I paid attention to their thinking. We worked on projects. We built things. I became very involved with a friend who became very close, and she was an environmental educator for a local environmental area. And we made all kinds of projects with children. I worked with her after school on building fun examples of using nature and art for several years. And then, she was also my racquetball partner. We played that for all our years that we were in Merrimack, New Hampshire, before we moved to Madison, Connecticut. Now, I then transitioned to first grade while I was there. I taught first grade for 2 years before I moved in 1985 to Madison, Connecticut. We moved because of my husband's change of position. He became a district manager for all of Connecticut and part of New York State, and was very involved with his job in sales for AMP Incorporated. It brought us down to Madison, and we lived there for 20 years. For 20 years, I worked at a school in Clinton, Connecticut, the next town over on the shoreline. The school was called Joel, and when I started teaching there were 900 students in the school, a little bit different from Kellogg School. I taught kindergarten and first grade as a multi-age classroom. I taught that program for 7 years, and then I got itchy. I needed to change, and so I moved to teaching second and third grade, a multi-age, continuing in the integrated day program. During those years, all those 15 years that I was there as a teacher, I was involved in everything. In the beginning, I was involved in teaching children how to write. When I was in New Hampshire, I became very interested in the invented spelling program, and it allowed children to start writing about anything they were interested in, even when they were in kindergarten. And we see that now here at Kellogg School with children's projects, and they write what they hear, and they write about what they like. And that's how I started in my kindergarten and first grade classroom. Second and third grade children were a little bit more advanced. They had, several of them had a great deal of information they wanted to write about. That was kind of my major goal in teaching second and third grade. But again, I was very involved in school, and at that time, I became the math curriculum coordinator for the school. Looking at numbers and having number sense, not just doing things through rote, but doing things through understanding. And what a difference that made. It helped you as a teacher to really look at the children's thinking, to understand when they told you and explained how they did something, to understand where they were, and for you to understand where you need to take them. Teaching became a major part of my life. I probably lived, breathed education and teaching. I was involved in everything. I went to all kinds of conferences. I taught the teachers at school. I did several classes, 10-week classes of how to teach children mathematics through their thinking, through understanding number. And it was such a eye-opener for me to look at some teachers who really didn't understand that, and then to see them, the teachers, not just the students, to see them make a change in how they taught. And so that probably brought me into my next step in education. At that time, I was very involved with the child study team. I took my students and we reviewed them. We reviewed every student who needed support in education. When I got involved with that, I also got involved with leadership. And from that understanding that leading was a next step in my life, I started my my 6-year program down at Southern, and I knew then that that's when I wanted to be a principal. So I went through that program. It's the 092 is the leadership certification so that you can become principal. I went through that program from 2003 until 2006, when I then started looking for a job as principal. I first did my internship right there at the school that I worked in with my principal, Karen Scapino. I learned a lot. The hardest part of what I learned is that my principal that I was working with was on probation. I learned how difficult it was to deal with politics in a school system. There were those people who supported Karen and those people who didn't. And I was right smack dab in the middle of that. It gave me a great deal of understanding of how to work with that difficulty. With that, I went out and I interviewed. I unfortunately selected schools in inner cities, it seemed like, and I wasn't necessarily selected as an inter-cities principal. I thought I could be. I really wanted to work with within that inner city setting, but it wasn't to be. So I kept interviewing. I interviewed in Watertown and Connecticut, and I had a great. I loved when the principal called me up and said, or the superintendent called me up and said, "You were next in line, but we have an assistant principal here that we want to make principal." It always seemed that wherever I did not get a position, the assistant principal did. My resume was pretty strong with all the work that I did in mathematics and in reading that supported me. Not only that, the work that I worked on with the child studies team and children who needed extra support. I just fell in love with where I finally ended up being principal. I can remember pulling into town where for my first interview. I was early and I drove all around town. What a spectacular building you have in your library. So I stopped and visited the library. I'm going to need a little help from Eric on this. Priscilla Belcher? Yes, Priscilla was the first person who talked to me in the library. Isn't that amazing? And she was reviewing at the time that I walked in the budget that had just been handed out to the library and to the town hall and to the post office, and she was reviewing it and she was picking it apart. That really helped me because I was on my way to an interview and I had all this information behind, thanks to Priscilla. And so I went on to my first interview. Andrea Downs was the chair of the Board of Ed at that time, a wonderful chair, a very interesting committee that I had to interview in front of, wonderful people. And I think that everything that I've done in my life brought me to this particular town. I remember that I had a second interview that I had to do, and I went back home to Madison, and a good friend of mine, another teacher at Joel School, her husband helped me learn how to interview so that I got the job. And I practiced and practiced. And what he told me is look for where they really need at that school and really focus on that and show how you can help with that. And I did that in my last interview. I think that really helped me get the position. And thankfully, I was able to say yes to my position here at Kellogg School. I lived in Pittsfield for the summer, but I spent most of my time after I left school riding around. I had a list of all the children that were going to be in the school, 103 of them, and I went to everybody's home. I drove around and I said, oh, that's where Brandon Carlson lived. Oh, and I went on to all of the students. I knew this town inside and out by the end of the summer. I used a little of Andrea's help because she helped me with places to go and learning about different homes and where the children lived. I have to show you, these were the folks group had Marlene Nichols put together these pamphlets. They were my Bibles in school. I had one for every year. My first year, I had a student staff directory with all the students' names and their address and where I could find them. And Chris Hanley, the art teacher, had the 7th grade students do their artwork on the outside of it. These have been, every year there, they've been very, very I don't know, I kept one, maybe I took 2, and I had them in different places, my home and in my office, and I used them. If I needed to call a parent, I had a telephone number. They don't do that anymore. Everything now is online. You don't need to have a booklet. I was telling my husband, oh, it's a shame because you're not looking at the 7th grade students' artwork that Chris Hanley put together. I went to all these students' homes, and when they came in, thanks to Marlene Nichols as my secretary, I knew what they looked like. I knew what grade they were in. I knew where they lived. I felt like I belonged. I think the person who helped me feel that way the most was Bill Beebe. Bill, because when you're there in the summer, it's just you and the secretary, Marlene, and the custodian, Bill Beebe. He took me through that school. He took me and showed and told the whole history of, we went down in the basement and looked at the boiler. The only place I didn't go was up in the attic. I knew it was there. Every classroom he went into and told me about the teachers and told me when it was there and how they put the gymnasium on and where the cafeteria used to be and was no longer. I learned so much from Bill, and he helped me all those years there, especially with taking care of the building and the roof. I came from a different type of school. I actually brought a couple pictures. This was a school picture that we took of the whole faculty at Joel School. Now, mind you, here's a picture of the whole faculty at Kellogg School. My first year there. What a difference. It really was an eye-opener. I thought that coming to a school with 103 students would be really, really easy. Yeah, right. I learned how difficult it was to just have a few staff members do all the many things that had to be done in the school system over and above teaching in their classroom. I also had to take on not just the wonderful events that I think I tried to be at everything, every school basketball game, every soccer game that took place. I then had to do all the other things a principal has to do. They have to care for the building, thanks to Bibi. You know, they have to do the budget. They have to work on weekly finance systems that take place. They had to hire. They had to work with supervision and evaluate teachers. They had to go to meetings and meetings and meetings. All these all these things that I hadn't learned as a teacher, I was now learning as a principal. Probably the biggest learning was taking care of the building. It's not something I learned as an intern, but I became very good at that. But again, that's because I had Bill. and from there, I realized that I had a little bit of trouble with time management. You know, you want to do everything when you're a principal. You want to be there for all the children. You want to be there for all the teachers. You want to take care of your school. You want to be part of the region. It became a full-time position for me. I worked from the time I got there until probably 7:30 at night every day. I worked on Sundays. I did take Saturday off to go grocery shopping and clean the house and do whatever else my husband needed me to do. But it became very overwhelming for the first couple of years. Interesting how we learn how to do things as years go on. My last few years, I could actually go home at 5 o'clock. And my difficult part as a principal was learning to write. There were many things you had to write. Evaluations, messages to teachers, annual reports to the town, reports to the Board of Education, letters of recommendation, on and on. I would say that was probably my most difficult piece of being principal. I think the best part of being principal was caring for the teachers and caring for the students. I was pretty good with discipline. You know, the students that come to see you because a teacher sent them. Sometimes I kind of was maybe a little tough, and other times I could sit and listen. And discipline was an area of strength for me. Now we come to the end. I ended my career when I was 65, and it was very, very sad to do that. When I came to Falls Village, I said, I'm going to give 4 years to this town. And I ended up giving 6.5. By that time, I was ready to go golfing with my husband and do some of the wonderful things you do. He was retired, had been retired for several years. It was time to play. It was time to relax with friends. So this picture I keep in my front hall was my gift from the school when I retired. And at the time, the art teacher, Chris Hanley, had all the students in the school sign it. And she designed the design, and she made it totally symmetrical, so that I have Lee H. Kellogg coming in each direction. And that was designed after we had just been to an assembly called the Signature Project, which would be very interesting for people to look up and find out about it. But in the heart, all the teachers signed their name, and in the letters, all the students in the school signed their name. And only one student was absent, and her name is signed on the back.
Very nice.
Well, that's my life as a teacher. I'd like now to tell you a little bit about my family and friends. A lot of men in our families. I grew up with 2 brothers, Ole and John, and my husband had 3 brothers. And then I had 2 sons, Sean and Jason. I guess we just like to live in the world of men. They've been such an integral part of my life. We also had very good friends for over 50 years, and then we've been married almost 56. For over 50 years, we had good friends, Don and Bill. But first, I'd like to talk about my husband. My husband's quick nickname is Chewy, Lawrence, Larry. All of our family calls him Chewy. We've been married for 56 years, and 56 years, we've
we've gone through our life together. We've done amazing things and very simple everyday things. It's been very, very, love of my life. From there, I talk about my my two boys, Sean and Jason. Sean was our older son. He was involved in all kinds of things in high school, very much an athlete, very good student, and then did some AFS years in Bolivia. Went on after college to get involved with education. Right now, Sean's the superintendent down in Harford County in Maryland. We were very proud this year. He was named Superintendent of the Year for Maryland. What a great honor for him and for us as his parents. And he has such a different school system than we do here in the little town of Falls Village in the Region 1. He has 55 schools, 35,000 students, 5,000 employees. What a world of difference. Just talk to him, and he's now working on his budget. Has to take it before the county. So different from us working on our budget here in Falls Village. He has, his family is Sean, Kate, and Emily. Kate works for a nonprofit, and Emily goes to college. She is a sophomore at Holy Cross, looking to work in the world of veterinary. My other son is Jason, sorry Jason. And his family is Amy and Zach and Leah. Gosh, our families are so important to us. Jason grew up loving computers. In middle school, he went away for a conference, and he's been involved with computers ever since. He went on to work at the Federal Reserve as a statistician, and there, after a couple of years, met very good friends, and they decided to go into business together. They set up a business originally called Forward Logic, and they taped and streamed medical conferences, and are still continuing to do that. It's almost come to an end after over 20 years, but he's also a very good businessman trying to find other avenues of work in the technology world. His wife is into marketing, works for Smithsonian, and they have a wonderful marriage, as well as my other son. Sean and Kate were married for 25 years, and Jason and Amy have been married for 22. My goodness. Their children are Zach and Leah. Zach is also a sophomore down in Florida State. He's looking to have a business of his own. He's in business right now. He'd love to be an entrepreneur. Our life with Zach was going to hockey games. He was our hockey player from the time he was a little boy until he left high school. Now my granddaughter is Leah, and Leah is our dancer. She's been dancing for I can't tell you how many years, and it's a major part of her life. She dances all week long, and even last summer she taught dancing to small children. Family, oh my goodness, family is so important to us. It's what makes the world go around, I guess. Also friends. I have made wonderful friends here in Falls Village. We have friends that were our neighbors. We have friends that we knew in high school, and mostly a lot of friends that we met through our occupations. But they help make every day go by. And my friends here in Falls Village, I'll name a few, Donna Hines and Mary Atwood and Christine Wallace and Diane Montagna, all good friends that we go out to breakfast with and are part of Hawthorne Club with. They help make life as a retired principal every day a special day. So family and friends, that's my life right now, all of the hobbies that we work on. And I get a little bit of time at the school with being a Board of Ed member, but right now my life is very happy, and we enjoy our home, and we enjoy our gardens, and we enjoy our summer place, and life is good.
So even though we've been an educator for over 40 years, I now am very, very happy that I'm a retired principal.